Going, and it's 9:31, so we're doing pretty good here. So let's go. We are live, so that is working. Indeed, that is the wrong one. I need to click on the live one. Okay. Mute that. Let's get the live broadcast. There we go. Let's see here. Link post. Well, it's like falling off a bike because you still remember how it works to get all this stuff done, but sometimes it's still a little rough. Get some scrapes. But I'm getting it all back on there.
At least I don't have to be as nervous this week. Last time I was on, I had Grand Admiral Thrawn on here with me.
I mean, get Baby Yoda this time. He's pretty cute. He doesn't judge.
Patrick, you'll learn. There's nothing really to be nervous about. Half of us just wing it anyway.
What do you mean?
This is live, Blaine. You're giving away all the secrets. Okay, let's see. I got the Reddit post up. Let's get the Twitter going. Tweet.
I'll tell you what got me this week. One of the guys in my league just did autofill until he went to fix his squad and never got around to fixing his squad. He's got 89 points off of autofill and leading our league right now.
Wow, that's a good autofill.
Oh, man.
So that's my recommendation for week 4. That's all I got to say. See you guys later.
Sweet.
Progress. Exclamation points are nice. Yeah, that's good. Tweet and retweet. All right, there's the social stuff going. Get back to chat. Hey, Levi. Levi says, hey, Patrick. Hey, Levi. From me. Top chat. Live chat. All right. Here we go. I guess I could stop showing off people all my stuff, like my Total War Troy that I got for free. Because I downloaded something. That's how that works. All right. I think we are ready. You guys are ready? All right. Yeah. That's right. Look at that glass. Patrick showing off the swag. There we go. Hello, fantasy managers, and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of Round 4 of the restarted 2020 season. This episode is brought to you by Raul Ruidiaz, early frontrunner for the MLS Hold My Beer trophy. Wait. Actually, brought to you by MLSFantasyBoss.com and the amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters like Patrick, who's with us tonight. I'm your host, Reed Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partners in fantasy, Mr. Blaine Riffle, and fortunately, Michael, who is joining us. He thought he might be delayed or prevented by a hurricane, which has petered out. So, excellent. Thank you for joining us, Mike, and we're glad you're safe for right now.
You're welcome. I defeated the hurricane. I was like, look, it's coming at the same time as MLSFI. It's not okay. We got to go forward. People have been waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for picks, and I'm sure my pick specifically, especially after the first round of games in this week, everyone's like, I got to have more of Michael's wisdom and LAFC picks. So
yeah, you just walked outside and went, because MLS, and it just and disappeared. That's what it was. But we'd also like to welcome again our very special guest, Patrick Smith, one of our top Patreon supporters. How is everyone doing tonight?
I'm good.
Good.
We particularly wanted to have Patrick on this episode because if you watched last week, either live or listened to us during the podcast, Patrick was in live chat with us, as he is often, and when we were talking about some of our potential midfielder picks, he was like, essentially, he said, don't sleep on Atlanta, which he's a bit of a homer, and that's okay. And the comment I made was, Patrick, I hope you go for it and grab Pity or somebody and just own it and then come back and brag about it, because that is part of the fun right here. And by golly, even though we're halfway through round 3 still, we are giving Patrick his time to shine and brag. So just hold off on just a second, Patrick. During our early reactions, I'll let you just let loose. But I am very happy that you can join us to talk about that tonight. 2 quick shout outs. First, I have to give a shout out to Robert O'Shields, who may not even be a listener of this show, but we recently found out that Michael either has a burner account on Twitter or a doppelganger on Twitter, because this is a fellow who is a New York City FC fan, lives in New Orleans, and also used to follow Patrick Mullins when he was in development, and is a huge Patrick Mullins fan. So I think that's right. Is that it, Mike?
Yeah, so I mean, Patrick Mullins played high school at the same high school that I went to. It's Jesuit High School. High school sports are kind of big down here. Where you went to school is answered by when you were into high school. It's a little bit different here than other places of the country. It's very much a part of your identity and pride and all that, blah, blah, blah. So Patrick Mullins being from Jesuit and kind of having that big career is kind of something that's been popular among Jesuit supporters. So whenever he went on, apparently this guy continued to follow him into New York City FC, and through Patrick Mullins is now a New York City fan. So there is another person in New Orleans who follows MLS, follows New York City, and loves Patrick Mullins. So, I mean,
but maybe not.
What an awesome
It
day.
may just be Mike's burner account. So.
It may just be my. I
We'll
mean,
see.
I just remember it. Maybe I had COVID and I had, schizophrenia. And that's it. We don't know if that's a symptom yet. It's a new disease. We're all learning. I couldn't tell you. Who knows?
We will see. But it was wild. So have to give a quick shout out to that. And then on a personal level, so as a lot of you probably know, my wife and I are having a baby in October, and we've been getting presents in the mail, and we got a gift from someone whose name is Abraham Kleinbart, and she and I don't know an Abraham Kleinbart, and he is from New York, and we don't know how this happened. The only thing I have come to think is that perhaps, Abraham, you may be a listener of this podcast. I don't know, and you found one of our registries and sent us something. So if that is true, this is a shot in the dark, everybody. This is like the last, like, it's not my side of the family, it's not the wife's side of the family, it's not even from our registry. The item came, it was an item we registered for, but it did not come from our registry, one of the companies. So we were just completely taken aback. We have no idea what's going on. I would like to send you a thank you card, but I just let me know, Abraham, if you're listening, or if people know what's going on. Thank you. If this is someone's burner address and identity, I don't know. Thank you. But I'd like to at least be able to figure this out and actually say thank you to this person properly. So if you are a fan of this show or MLS, or somehow we've crossed paths that way, please DM me and let me know, because this has just been wild. Okay, there's the welcome, there's the shout outs, and potentially a piece of detective work that might get solved. Round 3, guys, that's what we're here to talk about tonight, right now. It's still going on. This is uber massive week that we've still got 2 days left in this thing, but every team has pretty much played once now. We just had the New York Columbus game wrap up right before the show started, but we pretty much got one game out of most of the teams. We can give a quick little reaction to some of our takeaways so far, and we'll give, for everyone listening, a little early thoughts on round 4, because that's right around the corner. So we're going to go ahead and give you that content. For me, I've broken down round 3 into its 3 days. I didn't talk about today, and I've given those.
Oh, of course,
days.
you're not going to talk about today.
Well, I mean, we can. We can. When I was writing this, that wasn't finished yet, but I'll let you talk about it. I mean, I'm happy about it too. I'm happy about that result. So Thursday, I've called about as expected. Friday I've called lower scoring than expected, and Saturday I have called Bananas Day because Saturday with MLS was absolutely bananas, especially when it came to fantasy. I'll let you guys go first. What were some of the initial reactions, fantasy reaction you've taken from these first 4 days for you, Mike? We'll let.
I'll do kind of a general reaction.
Sure.
I was surprised by how many clean sheets
For sure.
there were. I mean, I think probably going overall, the keys to success this week was one, if you avoided the Vela captain trap, which we'll talk about. But I think the other thing is whether or not you had enough defenders, because most people shots at defenders except for Orlando have hit. I know for me, TFC hit, Columbus's first game hit. Philadelphia and New England hit. I know a lot of people went with Philadelphia players, with Heel being out. And then, of course, I encourage people to have the courage to Cincy hashtag, and those people who did that were rewarded. Reed shook his head like, no, he doesn't believe in his own team. There's going to be a theme of this week of having more faith in other people's team than themselves and being rewarded for it.
For sure.
But not Atlanta. So we'll get to, Patrick beat me on that one. But yeah, so I wonder if this is going to be a trait going forward, especially with what we saw tonight in the New York City game. Columbus did rotate everybody because Zardes still played, but they rotated a bunch of players. Like, I know the keeper was new. Awful didn't play. This again, there were a bunch of new players. We'll see if that's a trend, if we see it heavier rotation on the road as part of the second part of these double game weeks, because we know they're going to come fast and furious. If that's the case, we may be seeing more emphasis on defenders, and that's really good because they're generally pretty cheap with the budget the way it is, and it'll allow managers a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. Patrick, what about you? General reactions?
Oof. Pretty much like Mike put out on Twitter, basing picks off of the MLS's back tournament. Big boo-boo.
Oh, yeah.
You thought Orlando was going to bring some of their big strength from the tournament with them? Nope. No, they did not. Timbers. Apparently they still have a victory hangover. LAFC forgot how to play football. So...
I saw a meme, which I know everyone's familiar with this meme. It's your traditional Olympics first, second, third tiered section, and it's the players who have won, and the third place player is going absolutely bananas, and when it zooms out, you find out he's a third place player. And it zoomed out and it had Seattle on top with the cup, Patrick. LAFC on the side at second with the shield, and then Portland Timbers third with MLS's back, absolutely losing their minds. And I looked at that and I thought, yeah, that's it. That is it right now. but you're right. Yeah, this we had hoped for more useful scouting, and maybe people still pulled some things. I mean, we saw some better defensive shape from Cincinnati. We saw some good defensive performances from Elliott. Nani still got on the scoreboards. I mean, it's not horrible, but not everything was repeated. You're for sure right. Blaine, what about you?
One of the big ones I see is the road teams. I mean, we talked pretty heavily about flying in day of, playing the game, and having to fly home, and that travel hangover, even on short travel, could be an issue. Sporting got a road win. I mean, LA Galaxy are playing in LA. I mean, it's not that much of a travel, but that's the opposing set. Colorado went in, or Salt Lake went into Colorado and got the win, and Seattle went into Portland and got the win. I mean, that's a lot of big road games, and those weren't all close games either. I mean, 3-0, 4-1 on the road, that's huge in MLS. Even 2-0 for the Galaxy is a pretty big win when you take it out of the home stadium. That was big. And then the other big one I wanted to point out is we talked back and forth whether Vancouver was going to be a legit team or not. They got outdone on possession by 67 to 32%. but Hasal had 7 saves again. They held Toronto to 1 goal. They had more of their first team lineup in there. They had some guys back. The defense looks better given all the other guys back. They're not the pushovers that we kind of saw in the tournament where they could give up big goals and they're just going to get absolutely shelled. They still got shelled, but Toronto's a good team, but they're not giving up the goals right now, even though they're getting shelled, and that's puts them closer to on par with where we've got Cincinnati at right now, defense-wise. But if they're not going to give up too many goals, or if they can start pulling out some clean sheets, or if Hasal's going to keep stacking up 5, 7, 10 saves a game, that's a defense you can look at to get a ton of bonus points when all other things are equal.
The only comment I have about that Toronto-Vancouver game, which I think that's a great fantasy takeaway, maybe get some switcheroos out of Vancouver. But the only comment I have to make is this was a Groundhog's Day game. Like, they just played this game a few days ago, and I have to wonder if there's pressure from Toronto to maybe try to change it up a little bit. Does Vancouver know better what to expect with it being so recent? Maybe they're a bit better prepared as well. But it's still, I still think it does make them a little bit. I'm still betting against Vancouver, but maybe more of it. I'm not going to go for their attackers.
See, I'm going to disagree with Blaine. The expected goals. In the second game, Toronto still put up 2.26 expected goals. It didn't end up in the back of the net, but Vancouver's giving up way too many chances. They've got absolutely nothing going forward. 0.37 and 0.36 were their 2 expected goals totals for the games against Toronto. I mean, we talk about clean sheets as being so important. I mean, if you have a team that's like struggling offensively, they're playing like Nashville or somebody like that, then yeah, I can see kind of going with them if they have a decent shot at a clean sheet. But otherwise, I mean, they're getting shelled. And I know TFC is a good team, but it's been consistent throughout the tournament. Anyone who's playing them is getting tons of chances, and maybe Hasal is keeping some out of the back of the net, and maybe he's not. But you're pretty much pinning all of your hopes on that. It's not a good team. It's not a good defensive team. I don't know if I could recommend them.
Oh yeah, I mean, maybe you go Hasal as a cheap switcheroo, keeperoo, but
yeah, now that's
where I was thinking with those saves. Those are great numbers of saves. Some quick takeaways that I have jotted down from this first half. New York Red Bulls, they got a win, but they still haven't identified this consistent goal scorer right there. So it was all about the defense in this game. Even the goal was about the defense, and that's kind of not what you hope to see with this. So consistency there.
I'm just going to sip my beer quietly and ignore this.
New York City FC struggling some without Maxi Morales there as well is a big hurt. The biggest breaking news of at least Thursday was Zelarayan did not play for Columbus. He had an injury he was working on, which nobody knew about, I think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Apparently he had an ankle injury that he was nursing throughout the MLS's back tournament. And apparently, they're giving him some time off to get it healed. He did not play tonight. Hasn't appeared on either of the 18. We'll see if he shows up for the derby on the weekend. But and I mean, look, this is something. It was really, I don't know if we're talking about Twitter exchanges. Someone picked up on my tweet. It's like, oh yeah, if you followed MLS Fantasy at all, you know that injury reports are scarce. Someone
saw that.
Like, oh god. But I mean, it's going to be worse than usual because even the little few beat writers who can cover practice, they're not there. They're doing everything by Zoom. It's absolutely total team control of injuries and information. So it's going to be tough. You're going to have to use those things. And I think something that we've seen recently, which I didn't get a chance to see if it happened today, lineups are coming out a lot closer to kickoff time. It's been the case since MLS is back. It was certainly the case Thursday. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is, but it's just something you have to be aware of. You're not going to get a whole lot of time to react. You really need to plan ahead of time for pretty much everyone because, I mean, Zelarayan came out of nowhere. We were expecting him to go 180 this week.
So it's going to make for some interesting reaction changes. I just sent the chat. If you guys are listening, I want to know, did you have Zelarayan and who was your gut reaction switch? I'm really interested here. Other game on Thursday was New England versus Philly, which ended about like we thought without Carlos Heel. New England that's a big hit to their offensive production, and Philly was looking good on defense during the tournament. So seeing that draw was definitely good for reinforcing that idea for Philly, especially for some of those cheaper defenders they have access to, and of course their goalkeeper. Friday, like I said, lower than expected as far as goals went. The FCC draw, good call, Mike. That was against DC, who still had some struggles of their own, but nice to see taking shape. There's some good defensive value there if that's a risk you may want to take. Still put it in more of an Aru option, but that to see like 3 games of some pretty solid defensive formation is nice for me personally as well. Minnesota Sporting Kansas City. SKC got that win, but Blaine, no goals from Polito, and that was something I had talked about before as a worry. I went with some of your optimism of what he can do as a forward, but didn't get any points from him. But Kinda was the top scorer from this game, which you did mention as a prime target. So props to you right there, Blaine.
Yeah, got to throw out the nicest rivalry in sports. Own goal was the leading scorer in this one each way. Just these guys helping each other out the whole way through.
For sure. Then, of course, this one also had Houston and Dallas. Dallas is still struggling to get some offense going right here. But Houston had a 4.5 goalkeeper who played and got a clean sheet here. So keep an eye on that. I don't know if we're all in on a Houston defense either. Again, with Dallas sort of struggling in this realm. But there's a 4.5 keeper if that's something people want to keep their eye on. They did hold them to 1 shot. Or maybe the better way is Dallas only got 1 shot on goal. So take that as you will for a 4.5 keeper. Now, Saturday is a day that is bananas day right here. LA Galaxy winning El Tráfico. Bonkers from what we all expected. And we have to ask ourselves right now, is LAFC better without Vela? He did leave this game before the 60-minute mark. With an injury. I didn't see how serious that was. I don't know if Mike or anybody else has heard about that. But no Chicharito here. Pavone was the standout. Bradley Wright Phillips was a halftime sub. What do we think? LAFC better or worse with or without Vela? Blaine.
I didn't get to watch the game, but just how ineffective they were with Vela coming into the lineup compared to how they played through the tournament without him makes me pause and think that if Vela's a little rusty, if he's not 100% fit, now he's picked up. I was told it was a knee injury. I didn't get to watch all of this game. I was told it was a knee, and it was by one of the guys in my draft league who actually has him on his team, and he is not optimistic for a quick return from this one. So when you waste the number 1 overall pick and 3 weeks into the season, 4 weeks into the season, you're
weeks.
Well, yeah. When you're losing your number 1 overall pick, like that kind of hurts, and he's not optimistic on what Vela's outlook is. So I'm taking that as this probably isn't good. Bradley Wright Phillips and Rossi together were playing like crazy. Blessing was becoming more and more of a focal point without Vela in there. You throw a guy like Vela in, it's kind of the Landon Donovan situation with the national team. He's got such a name and a reputation that everybody wants to play through that player to the detriment of the team. And I think that could be happening with LAFC to a degree. That Vela's there, so they want to play everything through him, and it may not make the team better. It may actually make the team worse, given how well they had been playing together without him. Now, if they start to struggle, if they drop off, of course you've got to bring Vela back in and let the best player in the league run the team. But they need to learn to play with Vela without playing everything through Vela at times. And again, I didn't get to watch all of this one, so I don't know if that's 100% the case. But I do know that can happen a lot, and the chemistry on a team that missing a superstar and still rocking like they were could go away when the superstar comes back.
Patrick, your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I watched about the first hour till the Atlanta game started to come on, and Vela definitely showed that he had not played competitive ball in a while. He just looked rusty. The holes he would normally find and dribble around somebody, he was just getting stuffed. They were taking the ball away without being able to feed through him. They just looked lost. It was like last year when Zlatan was with the Galaxy. If he was on the field, everything went to him, and it worked or it didn't. So it looked kind of like that again, where they don't know how to play with Vela if he's not 100. So I think right now they are much better without Vela.
There we go. Mike, where do you fall?
I didn't get the chance to see this game. To me, Vela's rustiness doesn't explain what we saw. LAFC put up 0.4 expected goals total. They had a half hour without Vela. If what was going on was just simply Vela, you would have expected once Vela came off, they could have readjusted, generated some more chances against an LA Galaxy defense that we were calling one of the worst in the league. They didn't do that. No one performed well, even when Vela was off. I mean, they generated a few more chances, but I mean, they were not particularly good. 0.4 over the day is a really awful number, and it's a horrific number for LAFC. To me, this was just comes down to, it's a game in the afternoon, and they just weren't ready for it. I don't know if they just expected a cakewalk over the Galaxy and were surprised by something or couldn't adjust or what exactly happened. But, I mean, I don't think it was solely explainable by Vela. Now, the way that Bob Bradley has talked about it, he described it as, it was a non-contact knee injury. He pulled up and just kind of grabbed his knee. After the game, he described it as an MCL-type injury. The latest is that he refused to give an update and will tell us tomorrow, fingers crossed. Maybe if we're really good boys and girls, he'll let us know what's actually going on. Or maybe he'll just lie to our faces. Who knows? But I don't expect Vela to go to RSL for the second half of this double game week. To be honest, I wasn't expecting him to go there anyway, with the altitude and all that. But I'm expecting him to miss some time. I mean, it's just I really want to see what they do against RSL. That's to me is the big question. If this is really just Vela was rusty and threw the whole team off, maybe. But I mean, LAFC has had experience without Vela and seemed to do fine last season. Not quite as well, but I mean, we're still generating chances and goals much better than they did against Sunday. So I'm in the camp of this was an aberration, just kind of a fluke derby, first game back kind of thing. And I'm not going to read into it more, but if we get a bad result against RSL, then maybe I'll take notice and start downgrading LAFC players.
Yeah. And many people can rest assured that they are in the same massive pot of people who are also having a 2-point captain this week. So I don't think this is something to worry about. A lot of people are in this situation. If you didn't captain Vela, hats off to you. Send me a message on Twitter if you're in chat right now. Let us know who you captained, because good job. That was a good pick. And even without Vela being injured, which is horrible, and I hope he recovers quickly, I think just the craziness of this restart from 2020 should make people feel more free to not always captain Vela. I mean, I think at least for the next few weeks, if he's injured, of course, but if he comes back, I think there is this warm-up period again for him, this strained situation for people. Defenders may even be options if we're going to be seeing more clean sheets and maybe some goals or assists from people. So I think you have freedom to sort of branch out with other options. But enough of the delay. Atlanta hit the restart button right here. 2 goals from Pity. Patrick, now is your time. Cheers.
Yeah, the one thing I got right this week. How about that? I had a decent feeling about it, knowing the interim manager, Stephen Glass, wanted to bring back that attacking style of play for Atlanta. He had actually gone back and studied tape of Petey at River Plate to see what brought out the best in Petey, where best to put him. He moved him on that left wing where he played at River Plate, opened stuff up a little bit, even without Barco in there, who took a knock training Friday and couldn't play. It just opened up. Once Kubo came in late in the game, it opened up even more, and that's when we got the rocket shot from Petey. It's good to see attacking football out of Atlanta again.
There you go, yeah. Very nice. And I have to say, last week I was talking about how I wanted to see something from Atlanta before I really went with them. If you were like that, here you go. Here's what you were waiting to see. But when Zelleron did not start, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What's going on? I already had Ladero in my team where I had done some rearranging, and I was like, who do I want to go with right here? Considered Kinda for a hot second, but I was like, you know what? Patrick was talking up Atlanta. Why not? I'll put him on my bench. Let's see what happens. I kind of need to switch something up with the midfielder anyway for my switcheroo. I'll go with Pity and just have fun with Patrick this week. And my hat's off to you, Patrick. That worked very well because I have Pity's 14 points on the bench, which I even took Ladero out of my team because I was like, you know what? I feel good things about Blanco. I'm going to get rid of Ladero, and that might have been a mistake. So
even a blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while.
That's right. And so that's something we haven't talked about. We've touched on these games real quick. Miami also did well. Miami also did well. They upset the Darlings of the MLSFI Cup with a 3-2 win over Orlando. Pizarro, who is a $10 million midfielder, did very well. And then Carranza, who is an $8.5 million forward, did well for Miami. So there's two names you may want to take a look at. Have some good value right there. Nani was back on the scoreboard, so if you have Nani on your team, he's got an 8 right now. That's fine. You got another shot with him with Nashville, which might be the better opportunity this week, but not a bad result right there. But yeah, Miami actually did what I think a lot of us had thought they would do at the beginning of the MLS tournament. I think most of us thought they were going to make it out of the group, and this was why.
Reed, huge takeaway in this game. Orlando is one of those teams that's kind of in flux right now with strikers. Dwyer picked up a knock. Mueller's been hit or miss. I think they just signed another striker. I wasn't prepped for this part, but I think they just signed a new striker this last couple of weeks.
Okay.
It's supposed to come in big, but the biggest fantasy takeaway right now is DK. He is a $5 million forward who has come up, and if they're struggling to find goals, he got a goal and an assist in this game. And I know we were talking about Mueller being hot, but they've still benched Mueller even though he was hot, or he's not playing that feature role. He was hot in the tournament, but they seem to be kind of rotating through guys. But if a kid like DK is going to come on and drop a 10 in fantasy, grab a goal and an assist, you can expect he's going to get some more time with this club. That's a name that every fantasy manager has to keep an eye on at that price because you can slot him into pretty much any lineup you want to build. If you go heavy midfielders, keep going heavy midfielders and spend all your money there, but there's a $5 million forward option to slot into your bench and just kind of keep on the back burner there. If he's going to put up these type of numbers at that price, you can't really afford to not have him.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic takeaway. Yeah, $5 million is a steal, especially since if we are going to see some of this continued clean sheet options and just success, then if you move to a 4 or even a 5-man back line, having a cheap forward like that is ideal for deciding if you want to have a forward swap in or the defender come in. You look shocked, Blaine.
No, I'm just looking up numbers. It's the lighting.
Okay. No, just all of a sudden, for those of you not watching who are listening to us, Blaine just sort of had this look of awe appear in his face, and I was like, oh my gosh, did Blaine just like solve injury news or something?
Yeah. No, I was trying to look up who the new signing was for Orlando, because at first I thought this kid was the new signing, but no, he's a Oklahoma product. I know they brought him in. I'm at a loss for who the new signing is. I think it's AS, 23-year-old forward from Brazil. They just brought in as a young player to try to shore up this attack.
He doesn't have a picture yet. Yeah, $6.5 million.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I guess 20-year-old kid coming on like that, that's worth it for me. I was just trying to figure out, because I thought he was the new signing for a minute.
Sure.
Because I didn't know the name. I couldn't remember who they signed. But no, he is not the new signing. So they've got another forward in the mix.
And we'll have to mention RSL real quick. They got that 4-1 win over Colorado. Bananas. That's the biggest bananas of the round, especially as poorly as we were talking about RSL. Apologies, but show us some consistency now. Chang is a 5.5 million. Was he a forward or a midfielder? I didn't write that.
He is a mid.
For midfielder, 1 goal and 2 assists. Merrim, 4.9 million, 1 goal and 1 assist. Baird, 5.4 million forward, 1 goal, 1 assist. And Krylich, or is Baird a midfielder too? Anyway, and Krylich, 7.7 million with 1 goal. Ridiculously low for a lot of these guys, but I think that shows the consistency that we've worried about. Merrim is definitely hot and cold. Baird has also been kind of hot and cold, been kind of a favorite switcheroo pick for a lot of people. But this was a crazy game. But given a shout out, there are some definite potential switcheroo options in RSL, though I have to believe that this is going to depend a lot upon the matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the big final question I have for this segment of the show. We have seen the new double game week rule in mass, in effect, right now. First time we've seen this huge double game week, and we're seeing how it works. What are your first takeaways, Mike? Have you liked it? Whatever. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it I definitely liked it. I mean, it's nice to, one, not being trying to predict stuff. I mean, Columbus is a perfect example. We saw them completely rotate in the second game, pretty much put up a dud. It's kind of nice, but like, all right, I got my clean sheet. I got what I needed to do. You know, for switcheroos, it's like, okay, I got my switcheroos. I got the result. I can move on. And then for the players who didn't do well, because my panic move for Zelleran was Blanco. So I have a 2. In most weeks, that would be like, well, it's pretty much a bad week for him, but you know, he can turn it around if he gets a good match in his second game. He can completely turn it around. So I'm liking it so far. I'm liking that it's more flexibility, more kind of concreteness, and like, okay, I got a good score from this player, and I can make decisions based on that. So,
and even better for me with that is, like, we missed on Blanco. He got a 2. Maybe he comes back against San Jose. Wait, no, they play San Jose. Yeah, play San Jose. I was thinking next week. Next week, LA is playing San Jose. Maybe he comes back against San Jose and gets a good score, gets a decent score. That would be fantastic. And if Pitti comes in again and scores 2 more goals, that's fantastic for Patrick. But he's not getting a 28. He's going to have a 14, and that means even if Blanco comes in here and gets a 10 with some assists and bonus points, you're still not that far off. Where you're like, if you were like, man, I got a 12 versus this guy who's got a 28, now that's a huge point swing. I love that. I love that so far. Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Mike on that one. It's exactly the same thing where you've got these that just hit a dud that first game, and normally it's just, well, there goes my week. But now you've got that second chance they could come in. Like I had Ruan on defense from Orlando, who gave me a nice goose egg in that first game.
Me too.
So if he can come in and get a decent score now, you know, that completely changes. Instead of relying just on a double score, it makes it actually a lot better. And I wanted to hate it. I thought I was going to hate it, but I like it.
Mm-hmm. Blaine?
Especially with the Corona schedule that we've got, where they are playing so quick and such rotation.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've missed the biggest highlight of this is I don't know anybody in this round last year that would have taken Pozuelo, who gave us a 12-point week. You know, Blanco's got a 2 right now. I'm hoping he can turn it on in the second game and salvage that score for me. But even if he salvages that score, beating Pozuelo is going to be tough at this point. A 12 is hard to beat, and a single game week player being relevant right now is huge. And then I love it on the other end. I mean, I'm on the Captain Bella downer train right now. My backup was Zardes. Zardes finished the 2 games with a combined total of 11 points. But I'm not second guessing myself saying, oh, I left a bunch of points on the table. I left a 1 instead of an 11, and I'm missing out on 10 whole points. Now I'm missing out on 7 points, the way it sits. Assuming Bella doesn't play, like I'm missing out on 7 points compared to 10 That helps. It's good. You're going to see that throughout the year. Just because your single game week captain or your captain doesn't have a good score, you're not going to see double ups like we did last year, and so it doesn't hurt quite so bad. And the same goes with all the rotation and injuries. You're going to see a lot of rotation. You're going to see guys you expect to have a good game not have such a good game here and there. And at least you're not losing out on that score and then into a double score from your potential replacement. It's only one of the scores, and even the highest one. I mean, it's a great balancing factor, and I love this rule change.
Yeah, I've been a huge fan for what I've seen as well, and I think, Blaine, that point of viability of single game week players is incredibly important to talk about. Yes, it hits Pozuelo, who has an early game, who got a great score. But also, going back to what you were saying, Patrick, I'm looking at my team right now, and I have Ruan on my bench, who got a 0. Suck. But I also have Nick Lima on my bench, who has a single game with San Jose this week, and they both now equally have a chance to have an awesome game. I mean, I could end up with 3 10-point defenders on my back line because Ruan has 2 shots at getting a clean sheet, but Nick Lima has just as good of a chance at something happening for him with this one game. So I think it's really made flexibility, and here's what it is. The common phrase that we throw out, that you see with sports, that you see all this stuff, especially in fantasy, is 2 bites at the apple. This guy's got 2 bites at the apple. Why would I never go with 2 bites of the apple? What I think this double game week change is, it's all of a sudden, would you rather have 2 bites of an apple that I found out of the crabapple orchard off the ground, or do you want to have 1 bite out of the Honeycrisp? And I'm going to go with the Honeycrisp. So that's what I see. It's now about the quality of the matchup, much more than just the quantity. So this is truly, for those of you who say this game is easy, this game is simple, it's whatever, this is so much a change that advocates for, you need to look at the matchup. You need to consider the play styles, the coaching, the who's going to be in, who's going to be gone, what's coming up with the flights in, the flights out, the upcoming game weeks. Like, this is so much of a, let me compare the quality that these players have versus just the raw quantity. And I, for one, am looking forward to the ridiculous double game weeks that we have coming up, but just seeing this change continue to play out the rest of the season.
Reed, and the way you put that, I think there's a few just general rules we can follow. Like, rules are made to be broken, for sure. But general rules is, as we play defenders and we generally tend to clean sheet hunt, taking 2 bites at the apple for clean sheet hunting is probably going to be in your best interest. Just, you've got 2 shots at it. If they make that 1 mistake in the first game, they've got another game to go get it. Whereas a single game week player, if they make 1 mistake in that 1 game, you're out of chance. And that's 5 points you won't be getting back. And I think the same goes for most of your forwards as well. You've got your boom or bust players. Bradley Wright Phillips has been a great example over the years. He's either a 2-point forward or a 7 or a 12-point forward. He doesn't get bonus points. He either gets you a goal or he gets you 2 points. That's Bradley Wright Phillips. For a forward like that, you take 2 bites at the apple. He's got 2 games to score 1 goal, and you get a good solid score out of him. Other forwards that get a lot more bonus points or a lot more passing oriented, you can look a little differently at them. But midfielders are where your single game week options really start to shine. 2 bites at the apple doesn't make as big of a difference for a guy like Pozuelo, who just got a 12 in a single game. Those consistent players getting the assist, involved in all of the attacks. Those are the guys that you can really kind of narrow in and go, okay, this is matchup by matchup. So it's knowing a lot of your positional play as you look at this. But I would say generally I'm looking defenders and forwards for double game week players. But midfielders, it's wide open. It's whatever's the best matchup more than it is who's got 2 games.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a different approach. I don't know if we would keep talking about this, Reed, but I'm kind of bringing my experience from playing the show league, which is, doesn't have double game weeks, and you had to pick based on the matchups. And for me, with that approach, I always looked more first for the best single game week matchups because I didn't have the rotation like you're talking about, getting bad apple. And I know that's going to be a good opportunity, and I don't have to worry about all the extra stuff about injuries and rotations and all of that, and kind of have that first. and then you kind of look to second. So to me, it's I'm kind of developing like a tiered system. If there's a single game week matchup that's great, I might go with them first. Like this week, I went TFC 3. Now I did a lot of them as auto ruse, with Westberg and Mavinga on the bench just to come in just in case something went wrong. And then Pazuello on there because, like Blaine said, Pazuello is pretty much going to hit at any time. And then kind of maybe for the first game of the double game week, I'll go them because I'll see those lineups and can make sure nothing goes wrong and they don't have a mass rotation. And then just kind of have the second game of the double game week as kind of like a backup thing. I don't think you're really going to bank on points because you just don't know what's going to happen. You know, for example, if you were banking on Columbus getting great points against New York City, then all of a sudden you're shocked by, you know, the rotation. That would have been a really difficult thing in years past because that's what we've been talking about in years past. Hey, New York City's had trouble defensively. Columbus can make bank off of both games. And that wouldn't have come true. So I think that's kind of the way you may need to approach this is I think this is less about who has the double game weeks and more about who has the best matchups and are they single game matchups and can you really bank on that being a great quality matchup? As long as you know I'm going to see those lineups and make sure the team is putting their best foot forward and are really going for it. And so I think I can get some points out of this. I think that's going to be maybe more important than is a team on a double game week.
And for sorry, are you finished?
Oh, I wanted to add one more thing because I thought of it while Mike was talking. I can't remember who it was, Reed, that ran the numbers for us and was constantly harping on this stat. A double game week is not 2 times the average score. It's between 1.5 and 1.75.
Yeah, 1.5.
Times a single game
Andrew.
score.
I think it's Andrew Crawlard who rented that.
That is something that I haven't been thinking about with this rule change, but that is something I think we could really do an analysis at the end of the year, but it's something to keep in mind now. If your average score for a double game week is 1.5 times your normal, that either means you're only getting half of a second game, or because of tired legs and everything, you're pacing yourself in a different manner to play 2 games in 1 week. That's just something to keep in mind, that single game week options getting their full score, where somebody else having to get, I mean, if we say it's 1.5 split over 2 games, that's 0.75 on your regular score. If you're getting 75% of your average in each game of a double game week, you're going to be outpaced by the single game week guys a lot more often.
And speaking of apples, the order goes Honeycrisp, Fuji, Gala, Granny Smith. There we go. That's the order. That is the ranking of apples. Moving on to a quick housekeeping section before some early thoughts about round 4. We got more out of round 3 than I thought we would. Just so everyone knows, important, clap emojis. Round 4 is from August 28th through August 30th. So that's a very short turnaround, but that starts on Friday of this week. So there's a quick turnaround there. Be ready to set your teams by 8/28. Round 5, I know it's crazy. We're thinking 2 game weeks ahead. It's like playing EPL back in the day. Round 5 starts on September 1st. So that's another quick turnaround, and it's going to be another big double game week. So be ready to set some teams quick. Be thinking about who you're going to be looking at as this stuff moves forward. We will try to be right there with you to help give you some advice. Okay, for round 4, the upcoming round 4, no double game weeks. Okay, everyone is a single game week team. So all that conversation we just had about how awesome the double game week rule is doesn't matter. Houston is not playing. Vancouver is not playing. Those make them your ideal switcheroo candidates because they're not going to play. You don't have to worry about it. Everybody else is a single game route team. If for some reason you're looking for someone to be in a roux because you potentially want them to play, you're going to be looking at Nashville, Miami, Seattle, and LAFC, I guess. But you'll probably already have some of those players anyway. But those are teams who are playing at the end of the week, so you could still potentially get their players to come in. But pretty much if you want to switch a roux, you're going to go with Houston and Vancouver, and they've got good options as far as value goes. Normally we do injuries here, but I don't think anyone knows who is injured. So anything from you, Mike?
Other than Zella's
Zellarion.
probably out.
Zellerion and maybe Vela. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
those are who you're looking at.
On Atlanta side, I know Barco's still listed as day-to-day. And Mesa, who came out of the game Saturday, they were waiting for him to be evaluated, but the coach is not releasing any detailed information on any of it. Said he didn't think it was that important for the public to know. So,
he doesn't play fantasy. And of course, Chicharito is still listed as injured as well. So we've got that.
And Max Morales didn't play either game of New York City's double game week, so
we
probably shouldn't pick him up anyway. But well, actually, that'll be important in round 14 because they have a decent matchup.
Two names on the transfer front: Reggie Cannon and Brendan Aronson both played.
Oh, right.
Two guys I was expecting to be benched pending transfers, but they both played, so that's great for us. And just keep an eye on those rosters because if transfer rumors start swirling again, they could easily be benched. But right now it looks like the coaches are going to keep playing them as long as they're here. I know the European transfer market is kind of dry right now. There's some talk of not spending a ton of money because of the virus and everything. So these guys may not be sold. But I know the hope is to sell a few of these players. But it looks like MLS is just going to keep playing them regardless of the transfer rumors.
All right, let's move on to round 4. Now, these are early preliminary picks. We still have basically half of round 3 still left to play, but this is going to be a mix. I know some of us are going to talk about the matches that we find favorable that have players for these positions, and some of us, like this guy below me in the window, who goes by the name of Blaine, might have some players to throw out for you at this point already. So it's going to be a little bit of a mix, a grab bag early, just again, as we talked about, just to kind of help get you in the mindset of where you might want to look. So let's start out with keepers and defenders. Blaine.
Yeah, I actually like this one. Mavinga and Westberg are my two quick switcheroo options for defense. They played the first game of the week. Yes, it's a travel game, but it's versus Montreal. Montreal has not looked the greatest. This is one I think you can really snag a lot of points pretty quick on and get them early in the round, get them out of the way, get your switcheroos done with, and be happy there. After that, I'm looking at Minnesota as kind of a backup and a second-tier team. I have not seen anything from Dallas that makes me think they can score a goal right now. The rest of the teams are seeing a lot going on right now, a lot of ups and downs, and the other defenses we've kind of relied on have tougher matches. With the way Atlanta has played, I'm not as sold on Orlando as I would have been any other week. The teams I'm relying on aren't there as much. Kansas City against Colorado, it's another road game. That one could be a good one for you. Watch who's starting. There's been a ton of rotation. Graham Smith seems to be the favored center back now, and Winston Reed got to start, pushing Kunchek to the bench, and Beasler is nowhere to be found at the moment. So kind of watch that. Left back got switched up. It seems like Zusi and Smith are the only two regulars right now, so that could be a lot of trouble going forward. And then Philadelphia, McKenzie has been outstanding. McKenzie's probably going to be a guy I'm going to ride for a while because he's been hot, good points. And they're hosting DC, and DC can't buy a goal to save their lives right now. I don't even want to get started on DC's attack because that's killing my draft team. But so some names to start with. Really, it kind of depends on who Minnesota goes out with the rotation. There is some rotation there. But I would do McKenzie and Wagner and Elliott. I mean, those are the three names from Philly. I really think that's a game where you could double up. I'm really, really tempted to double up on Philly, double up on Toronto, and throw a Minnesota guy on the bench for good measure and just kind of pack my team right there.
All right. Mike, who you got?
So I'm kind of looking at the same place as Blaine is looking. I'll throw up a few other options. I think New England Revolution. We talked about the Red Bulls having issues in scoring. They pretty much needed Pro to hand them a goal against the New York City FC. And, I mean, their defense is terrible. I'm still not sold on what they can do offensively. This is on the road. And New England defense has been much better this season. So Obviously, pretty much everything I'm going to say was put in an asterisk of I reserve the right to change my mind based on what happens in game 2 of the 7-game week. But I think New England, they all in their last game, they had I wrote down Butner, defender who's 5.0, could be a good value.
11 points this last week, at least.
Yeah, 11 points was their top defender. And I mean, Jack Elliott for the Philadelphia Union was 4.4, was their top defender. So definitely some cheap options this week. I'd also throw out Columbus, FC Cincinnati. Courage to Cincinnati does not include Cincinnati attackers. We saw what Columbus could do, and even tonight, even in a losing effort, New York City was not creating a whole lot offensively. I think they finished with under 1 goal. And frankly, if they hadn't had a really bad turnover from one of their backups, New York City wouldn't have scored tonight. So I think Columbus's defense is really strong. So even though they're on the road, I wouldn't hesitate in picking them. Plus, they're early on in the game week, so you should have some good options there. Otherwise, I don't think I'm going with too many options from the later games. Nashville's too much of a question mark for me. And Seattle and LAFC have both given up too many goals in recent games for me to feel confident. So I'm kind of with Blaine. I think your switcheroos with defenders, that needs to be done early with TFC.
Patrick.
Kind of in the same vein, looking a lot at Columbus. No offense, Reed.
None taken.
But Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati's just not showing they can score as of yet. Asterisks on all my comments, please. And I like their defense. Like Mike said, if it wasn't for that just weird turnover tonight on just a miscue, they would have held NYCFC to a shutout. And I'm looking at another sneaky pick. I've got him in my lineup this week, and I just can't help it. But Brooks Lennon sitting at 4.7 right now as a defender, and he pushes up on the right wing, and he kicks in crosses and had a shot on goal on Saturday.
Yeah,
so
RSL.
sub $5 million back there with attacking potential. Yeah, I'm on that one.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. My mind's in a lot of the same place. Mike, I'm curious what you think about New York City FC's potential defensive options. Maybe just Tinnerholm when I'm saying this right now against Chicago Fire. Too expensive or don't trust them?
I mean, honestly, it's more of a don't trust him off the top of my head. I mean, they looked better today, but I mean, Columbus was kind of rolling, a backup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of what he did. I mean, I will say Tinnerholm was just what he's been doing is just banging in crosses. I mean, he got 3 points against Red Bulls, 7 points tonight. To me, even with what he's doing, I don't think he's generating enough bonus points. You really have to go to the clean sheet. And I mean, it is Chicago. We kind of saw Jekyll and Hyde from them as far as scoring and not scoring. The chances he's creating aren't as quality of chances that he was creating last year, so I don't rate him as highly offensively. He's just kind of banging in crosses to people who are frankly way too short to be heading them down and making them. It's really weird. It's like I don't want to get started on Dealey and how terrible of a coach he is and what he's destroyed to my team, but Patrick will sympathize because he's been there. So I don't trust him. I would rather go with one of the cheaper options to go clean sheet hunting. If you think New York City can keep Chicago out and maybe after the second game, think Chicago just can't score, then I would go for it. But I can't recommend him because he's not getting enough bonus points right now.
Yeah, I think it's probably maybe a fourth or fifth team you might look at. Philadelphia, definitely a front runner. I'm considering doubling up with Blake and another Philly defender. For that good shot right there. Again, I don't believe a lot in DC. Some good information. New England has some great cheap options. Farrell, a bit more expensive, but also got 11 points. But that cheap defense right there you were talking about, Mike, or you were talking. Was it you, Mike, or was it Blaine who was talking about the cheap defender? Yeah, Mike, you were talking about that was great. Great pickup of Sporting Kansas City. Colorado only got 1 goal this week, so SKC could potentially have a good road victory there. I'm tempted actually by LA Galaxy. Big question mark right here. Had a fairly decent defensive performance against LAFC. San Jose has shown some ability to score and put up shots during the MLS's back tournament, which we know means nothing, and I haven't seen them yet in round 3. So that's the biggest that's the big question mark here, is I'm surprised by LAFC. Haven't seen San Jose, but I'm like, maybe I go with an LA. I don't know. That feels wrong. So something like that is a maybe right there. But you mentioned Toronto. I think that's a great option for switcheroos. Toronto versus Montreal is ridiculous. It does not matter when. It does not matter where. Toronto versus Montreal is always a ridiculous
That's
game.
my biggest fear for picking
Yes.
defenders from that game, is that game just always turns into like a 7-goal fest.
Yes,
Toronto
like I would
wins
have
like
no problem
4-3.
with going with like a Pozuelo or a Piatti, because I'm like, they'll probably both get a hat trick. Who knows? The old Piatti will come back and get a hat trick. Who knows? Like, it would happen, and I wouldn't even bat an
Thierry
eye.
Henry will play.
Right. Yeah. Player coach Thierry Henry comes out. But they would definitely be a switcheroo for me. But that's sort of where my head is right now as potential. I think Dallas is a trap. They have some good players. Minnesota does have some potential, and people are used to playing in the Heat now after this whole Orlando thing. So, but I think be careful with that one. That was a team I have a question mark by, because you're thinking some of these guys might do well. Cannon did play. Is that tempting? But just watch out, because Minnesota has some potential right there. Let's move on to midfielders, Mike.
So I mean, we talked about Pozuelo. I think he's probably a must-have this week. Montreal's just been giving up too many goals, I think, to leave him on the sidelines. I'm also looking at Pity Martinez. I hate to steal Patrick's thunder, but we all know how well Atlanta tends to do against Orlando. And if Pity is freed and feeling, on a good hot streak with the new coach, I'm happy to ride that train. Some other names I'm looking at: Montero for Philadelphia. Again, with DC's struggles. If Maxi Morales were to play, I would think about him, but with his injury, frankly, I'd probably recommend against it. I'll probably look at Blanco, unless he just throws up an absolute dud against San Jose. But I don't trust RSL on the road. I know they just did well against Colorado, but that's on Colorado, and it's it's just a
history
short
there.
trip.
It's a rivalry.
Yeah. And then I might be looking at Seattle. I proved that I was the better Seattle fan than Ashley Savage, who is clearly #plastic in her doubting of Ladero. Ladero came through with me, 7 points, which is good, because she made sure to tweet me when Vela came off injured. So I did need something to
Bring
kind
you
of
back
pick
down.
myself back up. And then I'm going to be watching this second Miami game to see if that offensive output against Orlando, because I might be picking some players against them against Nashville. I'm not sure how to take Nashville. They did well defensively against Dallas, but that may be more of Dallas than Nashville. But I don't know how much to take a bad defensive performance in Atlanta. So we'll see what they do in this second game. But if all that goes well, I may be picking some Miami players. So that's kind of where my head is right now.
Yeah, that's not too far
And
of a
Columbus. If Zelleran plays, I'll bring him in too.
Patrick.
First pick, same as Mike, Pozuelo. Just gotta have Pozuelo. Of course, I got PT. Looking at Columbus, if Zelleran plays, I'll put him in. If not, I may be looking at Nagby, maybe as a Alderoo kind of thing, because he's got always consistent performance in the midfield. I like Pizarro from Miami. Of course, we'll see what happens in their next game, but against Nashville, I don't think their defense is really that great. I think that was more of a Dallas thing than a Nashville thing. So I'm going with the Joker for them in that game. And I don't know, I'm probably looking at an outside pick from Seattle too, since they play late, and I can kind of base it off of what goes on just to see with another switcheroo kind of deal.
Blaine.
Yeah, this week this week's tough because a lot of the guys I'm looking at are road players, and that makes it really hard to pick everybody. I think playing the first game, you gotta stash Pozuelo on the bench if you don't start him. Gotta have him in there. Reed, you asked the question in chat.
I did.
I am a Piatti fan. I've got him in my draft league. Pozuelo went in one of the first rounds. Piatti fell later, so I snagged him. He has been he's been good for me for my draft league. He's been getting good points. I don't think this is ever a Valeri Blanco decision. I think if you're picking one, if you've got the money, you're taking Pozuelo without a doubt. I have not seen anything from Piatti, and I have him in my draft league. I want him to beat Pozuelo every week. It's just that's not the reality we live in. So if you can stash both, if you can grab both, that's great. I'm looking at two defenders here, a defender and a goalkeeper option in the switcheroo, or the keeperoo here. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get a second one, but yeah, if I could get a second one, if this was a 4-player week, Piatti would definitely be there. And if you don't want to double up on defense because this is potential goal fest, like it always happens to be, I think they had a 4-3 playoff game at one point in recent memory. Just even when they're not good, these two teams play well against each other. So I could understand that. And Piatti would be my next one up if I wasn't taking two defenders.
Yeah, Piatti got 2 goals in the first game against Vancouver, but the answer to this question is clearly Pozuelo, because let's look at this most recent Toronto-Vancouver game. Both Piatti and Pozuelo both had 2 shots on goal, but Pozuelo had 5 corners. So it's set pieces. That's going to give the advantage to Pozuelo every time right there.
Yeah. So I've got a few names that are ready to come in off on my list. Jan Gregush or Kevin Molino. It's kind of a toss-up when you see the lineup and if Molino's going to play. But I don't trust Dallas right now. I know Dallas has got a good defense, but they don't have the rest of the team to hold the ball up. And if you give that Minnesota team that much of the ball, these guys are going to score points. They're going to get you fantasy points. So it's really hard for me to navigate against that game. But then it's Minnesota flying to Dallas one day and then going back. So that's one of the longest trips I think we're going to see from any team during this kind of phase 1. And that gives me a little pause. In a normal week with the way these teams have been playing, yeah, I would be all in on Minnesota. Pizarro is really climbing my list. What he did in the first game. And again, I don't think Nashville was that good defensively. I think they got fortunate and ran into a not so great attack coming at them. And then I want to see a few things that happen. I want to see what happens with Portland against RSL, but Blanco or Valeri is probably coming in this week. I don't think you can pass up one of those hosting RSL. I don't trust RSL's defense. And the same with, I want to see what LAFC does, because if they have another kind of a dud game, Ladera's almost a must-own at this point. Like, those are the names that I would have in my roster today if I could do it. If LAFC defense turns it around, I'm actually looking more at another road player going with Kinda for Kansas City against Colorado. He had a good game against them in the tournament. I think that's one of those where you can kind of bank on him being the premier midfielder. If he starts, there is some rotation risk here because Vermes has been playing a lot of the kids a whole lot more. But he's got the earlier game, and you can always switch back to a Ladero if LAFC is still playing. Exactly. If I think they're playing good, you've got Valeri or Blanco behind that game, so you have some options if you don't see Kinda. But he is definitely on my short list as well. So midfield really hinges more on the way the second games go this week, and I'm wanting to see if a few teams turn it on or if they're going to continue to play poorly, and then I'll have to go with it.
Yeah, you guys nailed a lot of the games I was looking at. With Columbus, of course, people are talking about looking at Zella. Pedro Santos did fantastic last year with getting a lot of bonus points and just generation of their attack. So
that was the name I forgot. I knew I
Okay, yeah, there you go. So that would be a natural pivot you could consider with Columbus. But yeah, Miami I think is a great opportunity for a lot of points that you guys mentioned. Some good value right there. I like that Portland game as well. The Seattle game is definitely one that I'm not sure about because it's so late, and I hate waiting that long with waiting for players, especially if I go with the captain from there. But I think your option, Blaine, of Akinda Ladero or Akinda João Paulo switcheroo is great for players to consider for looking at that round. Otherwise, yeah, you guys touched a lot of the good players. This could be a week where you go with 3 Philly players. Who knows? Who knows? Crazy times. Let's go to forwards. Patrick.
Oh man, this is actually one of the really, really difficult sections this week, isn't it?
It is. No, it really is kind of just weirdly a head scratcher.
I mean, your defense and mid's pretty clear cut. Your forwards a little iffy. I'm gonna steal some of Blaine's thunder though. I'm gonna start straight off with Jossie Zardes. I'm not saying I'm becoming a Zardes homer, but this is the second week in a row I've had him in my team, so might be swaying me, Blaine. Depending on what happens, Zubac at $4 million this week managed to get a goal against LAFC, so he'll see probably a little bit of a price rise, but not much to still be a cheap option, maybe off the bench at forward for the Galaxy. And the other one, I'm going back and forth between Raul Ruidiaz, depending on, of course, if LAFC can find their feet and be able to play some defense. Or, y'all are going to say Homer. I know you're going to say Homer. I don't care. Cubo Torres. Because for the simple fact that he only played 10 minutes in that game Saturday.
Okay.
And if you look at the difference between him and Adam John, I think, had like 4 touches that entire game. He's like basically non-existent on the score sheet. But Kubo came in, opened up space, turned the game around, and I think he ended up with, and I forget exactly how many points. It's a lot more than the starter Adam John had through 80 minutes that Kubo had in 10 minutes. So it's there as one of my differential picks because that's where I have to go because I'm way behind right now.
He had 4 points versus John's 2, and Kubo logged 10 minutes.
10 minutes versus
because he got the assist. So 3 of those points came from his assist. So right there. All right, Blaine.
Patrick, I'd be with you on Kubo. I've tried to ride the Kubo train since the Chivas days, but I can't do it against Orlando's defense. I can't do it against Orlando's defense. I know I want to see it first in more time. Garbage time doesn't mean as much to me, especially when they're up 2 goals. Like that doesn't mean as much. But I can't fault you for that pick because that is tempting and it's early. And if you're a 2 forward type of player, you can easily stash them on your bench, see the score, and then move on if you have to, which makes it really interesting. Pulido really comes up to the top of my list this week. I look at where the premium guys are playing. I think that's one of those matchups that will play out nicely. The other guy, assuming Vela's out, I'm actually really, really tempted to start Rossi and just keep him in there. I'll probably put somebody on the bench, and if he gets a good score, I don't have to wait on the last game. But Seattle fans have been joking about Arriaga being a blunder away from an opponent's goal, and I haven't seen that really change as much with Seattle. The rivalry games are always the rivalry games. You never know what's going to happen. The Portland score was what it was. Portland not scoring, but that's a rivalry game. You put LAFC, and without Vela, we talked about the chemistry possibly being better. Rossi running into Arriaga, I will take pretty much every time. I don't think you can pass that up. And then I think I'm going to put the third pick out to the community. Do I have to have Zardes on my team every week he's playing? Like, I think the answer is going to be a resounding yes, so I'm going to have to say Zardes. But I'm actually waffling on Zardes this week because of the way the Cincinnati defense has been playing. I don't think the goals are going to come quite as easily this time for Columbus as they did in the tournament. Assuming they're without Zeller-Ion, that's another hit. I really do like Pedro Santos as a like-for-like sub for Zeller-Ion. I don't think the team loses a whole lot with that. But at the same time, I think the way Cincinnati plays, I don't know that Santos can unlock him quite like Zeller-Ion can. And without Zeller-Ion, it makes me hesitate on Zardes this week a lot. I'm still gonna have him in my team. I mean, I can't not have him at this point. But I am waffling a little bit on that one just because of the way Cincinnati has played and no Zeller-Ion.
Mike.
Ye of little faith. Just abandoning him at the first sign of trouble. And the first sign of trouble to you is Cincinnati? Good Lord, how little do you think of Jossie Zardes? Good Lord. I do like Jossie Zardes this week. I know Cincinnati's defense has been tougher, but I mean, we've kind of hinted at it. Forward pool seems really tough this year. There's not a whole lot of consistent players, and Jossie has been. And so even with Cincinnati being good, I still see some potential there. I am also interested in Rui Diaz. I want to see what the second game is. If Rui Diaz can get on a hot streak, we know they can do well. And if Jordan Morris and Ladero, if that trio is cooking, Seattle can get some goals. And LAFC, for as good as they've been offensively, both in the tournament and out, they have been giving up a lot of goals. So I do see that as a potential area for success for Rui Diaz. And then from the third pick, I don't know how you can't go with Abobasi. I know he didn't have a great game against Seattle, but at that price, he's pretty much an easy put on the bench and swap in and kind of see what happens. Now, maybe some other players I'm looking at, Carranza for Miami to see if that train goes well in their second game.
Yep.
I'll be looking at that. I do kind of like the Kubo pick. But maybe a TFC forward if I kind of get a handle on that lineup. I don't know if Josie will play. But, we talked about maybe being skeptical of TFC's defense in that game because of how crazy that Derby's normally been. I could certainly see Josie or Akinola if he's healthy. Oh, I don't think we mentioned Akinola did miss both of the games for TFC this week, so we're not sure what his status is. But I could see Josie Altidore doing very well in that game as well.
Yeah, you guys have nailed most of them. I really like Zardes and Rui Diaz. Myself this week, third picks, definitely a head scratcher. I love looking at Miami. That could be a great value right there. Abobasi, we've got one more game this round for him as well against San Jose. So we can check again and see if that helps people feel confident. But I don't know. Another one, we have another game, or maybe this is against San Jose. Whoever's playing San Jose. No, dang it. It's LA is playing San Jose in round 4. That's where I keep getting confused. Someone. Anyway, Pavone. That's what I'm getting at here, folks. Pavone, without Chicharito, is a forward. Did well in this first LA game. Want to see how he does. The second game of round 3 could be an option in round 4. Just a couple of names that haven't been mentioned. Otherwise, you guys have covered a lot of it very well. Let's get your early captain picks before we wrap this thing up. Blaine.
Way too early to call.
Fair.
On captain picks. If I was pressed to do it today, it'd probably be Pozuelo. And I wouldn't have him on a bench roll, which I'm planning on not anyway. Pozuelo. The other two, if it wasn't Pozuelo, which I want to see in the lineup, I'm kind of torn between Pizarro and Pulido, which I'm shocked. Nobody gave Pulido more love in the forward section. I think I was the only one to mention him. We're talking about it being a tough
because he got 2 points right now, Blaine. 2 points.
Yeah, but that's the first game he's had with 2 points.
I know. Right now, 2 points.
Every other game has been outstanding. Even your best forwards like Bella get a single point.
He's got 2 points right now, Blaine, and I'm not going to use him next week.
But no, Pulido and Pizarro are two other names that are on my list, and that's 3 road guys that I'm looking at as captain picks. But I think your home options are more about are more about defense this week. Depending on what Rui Diaz and Ladero do in the second game, if Rui Diaz has finally turned it on and found his fire, he's going to be a hard one to bet against. I know I joked about him all through the tournament that he was non-existent and barely found anything. But if he's going to start putting up goals and assists like he did in this first game back, he's got to be on the radar as a potential captain pick.
Mike.
This is kind of a tough week for me. I kind of am tempted to do Pity Martinez with Atlanta's history against Orlando, but I don't know that I can pass up Pozuelo. TFC's just looked really, really good in all of their games. He's generated tons of chances, and Pozuelo has been involved. So as long as he plays, I think that's where my captain is going.
Patrick.
If I was forced right now, I would do Pozuelo. Like it was said earlier, with this matchup, it could be everybody gets a freaking hat trick. And if everybody's getting a hat trick, I'm betting Pozuelo's going to be getting his own hat trick and probably assisting 3 more hat tricks. So it's Pozuelo. Next down the line would be Petey and probably Pizarro. I just don't trust the forwards enough yet this season to put a captain on another forward. Thanks, fella.
Yeah, I think that Pozuelo has to be the front runner. For me, for sure, it's going to be a midfielder in round 4. Like the forwards are just so weird, and some of the names who I might want to look at, if it's a Seattle, if it's an LA player, somebody like that, are so late that it just worries me. And I mean, maybe you can say the same thing about having the first game come out, but yeah, Toronto, Montreal is always bananas, which of course this week it'll be 0-0. But that's
because MLS.
That's right, because MLS, exactly. But it's just so much that goes on at the end of the week that just gives so much pressure that those things just freak me out, and maybe that's a failing of my own. But I think it's got to be a midfielder this week. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Ran a little long again this week. More to break down with this massive round 3 than I expected. So hope you got some good information to be able to bridge the gap into round 4, since we will not have another mini podcast or anything before that starts. Guys, any final plugs? Blaine?
No real plugs from me, just for the community. Do I have to have Zardes in my team every week? Yes. I'm assuming the answer is just going to be yes from here on out, but I want to hear it from the community. If the community says no, then I won't do it, but I feel like I have to.
I feel like you have to have him captain every week.
I mean, if you want to earn a jersey by the end of the year, I mean, you have to have Zardes, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Patrick, any plugs?
No, nothing for me.
All right. Mike?
Nothing for me. If you see any injury news, I'll be happy to pass it along. If there's any of if that thing still exists anymore, that'll be fantastic.
Of course, for me, as always, MLSFantasyBoss.com. Trey is still writing his captain pick articles. I forgot to plug it last week just because MLS and we're back and it slipped my mind. But Trey's still doing his captain pick articles there. We have the podcast that comes there if you want to catch it again easily. Also, the Discord chat, awesome group of guys right there working on getting a couple of them on the show before we end for this season. So be sure to check that out. r/FantasyMLS, the subreddit. We have the questions thread gets posted there. We have Rate My Team threads that get posted there. News bits and items get posted there for breaking lineups and things. So check that out as well. And of course, Patreon, if you want to help support this podcast like Patrick does, you can be on the show sometimes, and also you'll get some swag. I haven't sent the swag out yet, even though I said I would, and I say this multiple times, but I got a couple of messages, yes, like the lovely glass being modeled. I got a couple of messages from people saying that they had canceled their subscriptions when we were on this sort of hiatus and that they were resubbing, so I wanted to give people time to get back into the system, so I had you on my spreadsheet so I could send stuff. So I'm going to send that stuff out soon because you should be back by now. Come on. It's almost round 4. So that's all that I have. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us. Again, I hope this advice was helpful in getting your mind in the right direction for your picks. And as always, good luck.